This video analyzes the game played between Ruger, who played with the white pieces, and Gebhard, who played with the black pieces. The code of the opening used was C54. There are several openings corresponding to this code. These are as follows: Gyuako piano, 4.C3 NF65.D4 main line, Gyuako piano, wing attack, Gyuako piano, modern system. Result: white won the game. What is the first move of the white player? White, pawn moves to e4. The most important target in the opening is to develop the pieces as last as possible in order to occupy and control the center. White's first move fixes a pawn in the center and, as the first step in getting his pieces off the back rank, opens avenues for his queen and bishop. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, pawn moves to e5. Black equalizes the pressure in the center and releases two pieces for action. He must be content with this, as he cannot hope at this early stage to wrest the initiative away from white by force. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, knight moves to f3. It is good strategy to make developing moves that embody threats, as it cuts down the choice of reply. Against the passive too. Knight moves to c3, which develops a piece but attacks nothing. Black can choose from among such good responses as 2 black knight moves to f6, 2 black knight moves to c6 and 2 black bishop moves to c5. Likewise, if white's second move is the quiet 2 bishop moves to c4, black has 3 good options in 2 black knight moves to f6, 2 black bishop moves to c5 and 2 black c6, with a view to an early black d5. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, knight moves to c6. Black saves his e-pawn and develops a piece. The knight comes into play efficiently. Its action is directed toward influencing the center. It detends the e5 pawn and attacks d4. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, bishop moves to c4. The bishop comes out, taking up a post where it commands a diagonal leading towards black's king. It attacks a pawn which is peculiarly vulnerable as it is defended only by the king. This does not mean that white will capture the pawn in the next few moves, but the threat is always there. Many a short brilliancy owes its life to similar captures in which the bishop is sacrificed simply to draw the king out into the open where white's other pieces can get at him. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, bishop moves to c5. Black follows suit, bringing his bishop out to the most suitable square. In the opening, a bishop is best placed for attack when it controls a diagonal passing through the center or when it pins a hostile knight and renders it immobile. Defensively, the bishop would do a fine job at c7, where it radiates power in several directions, making an intrusion by an enemy piece difficult. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn moves to c3 supporting an advance of the d-pawn with a view to controlling the center. White postpones castling as his king is in no danger. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, knight moves to f6, a powerful counter to the threat. Black develops a piece and attacks a pawn. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn moves to d4. White meets this by attacking a piece. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, pawn from file e takes at d4, practically forced, since 5. Black bishop moves to d6. Guarding the e-pawn is clumsy, since it blocks the d-pawn, while 5. Black bishop moves to b6 permits 6. Pawn from file d takes at e5. Knight takes at e4. 7. Bishop takes at f7, check. King takes at f7. 8. Queen moves to d5, check. And white regains his piece, remaining a pawn ahead. White could also play 7. Queen moves to d5, attacking the knight while threatening mate, instead of 7. Bishop takes at f7, check. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn from file c takes at d4. White's array of pawns looks impressive, but can the center be maintained? What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, bishop moves to b4, check, far superior to the timid 6. Black bishop moves to b6, after which black is crushed somewhat like this. 7.d5. Knight moves to b8. 8.e5. Knight moves to g8, both knights return home ingloriously. 9. Castles on the king's side. Knight moves to e7. 10.d6. Knight moves to g6. 11. Knight moves to g5. Castles on the king's side. Black's king is protected by 3 pawns and the knight. In 4 moves the knight and 1 pawn disappear, while the remaining 2 pawns are pinned and helpless. 12. Queen moves to h5, threatening 13. Queen takes at h7, checkmate. 12. Black h6. 13. Queen takes at g6, again threatening mate. The white queen is of course taboo. 13. Black pawn from file h takes at g5. 14. Bishop takes at g5. Queen moves to e8. 15. Bishop moves to f6, d, and white, exploiting 2 pins, forces mate within 2 moves. This is the final position of this line, after the actual move. White must get his king out of check, and if possible save the threatened pawn. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, knight moves to c3. White prefers this, which offers a pawn, to 7. Bishop moves to d2. Bishop takes at d2, check. 8. End pawn from file b takes at d2, when the e-pawn is protected. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, castles on the king's side. This was an inaccuracy. A better move would have been knight takes at e4. Chess is not for timid souls, wrote Steinitz in a letter to Bachmann. Castling early in the game is generally sound strategy. In this case it is inappropriate, as white's center is formidable and must be destroyed. Black must play 7. Black knight takes at e4, accepting the offer of a pawn, and take his chances of surviving whatever attack might follow. It cannot be worse than this passive castling, which results in both his knights being evicted from their fine posts. Pillsbury gave as his rule, which he said was absolute and vital, castle because you want to or because you must, but not because you can. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn moves to d5. Ordinarily, such moves are suspect, as d5 should be occupied by a piece, but here the pawn dislodges the knight and prevents black forever from freeing his game by black d5. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, knight moves to e7. This was an inaccuracy. A better move would have been knight takes at e4, as good as there is. The shift to a5 is countered by 9. Bishop moves to d3, and the knight is stranded at the side of the board. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn moves to e5. Now a shot at the other knight. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, knight moves to e4. Retreating to e8 does not look attractive, so black plays to exchange knights. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, queen moves to c2. Protects his own knight, which was twice attacked, and threatens the enemy's. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, knight takes at c3. Practically forced, as defending the knight by 10. Black f5 allows 11. D6 plus and the other knight falls. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn from file b takes at c3. This recapture gains a tempo. Black's bishop must lose a move retreating, while white's advantages multiply. Now he enjoys an open b file for his rook and an extra diagonal for his dark squared bishop. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, bishop moves to c5, this was an inaccuracy. A better move would have been bishop moves to a5, naturally, this offers better chances than moving to a5, the only other flight square. A comparison of the two sides' positions shows that white's is decidedly superior. Me has more pieces in play, and they have far more mobility than black's. He also has better prospects of bringing more pieces into the battle. The recommended recipe now is to occupy black with threats, keep him on the run and give him no time to put up effective resistance. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, knight moves to g5 ostensibly to scare black by the threat of mate. Actually, the purpose is to induce a weakening advance of one of the king's retinue of pawns. One of these pawns does move. Black is done for. For example, 12 black f5 13.d6 plus wins a piece, or if 12 black g6, then 13. Knight moves to e4 forces 13. Black bishop moves to b6, when 14. Bishop moves to h6 drives the rook to c8, and 15. Knight moves to f6, check. Wins the exchange. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, knight moves to g6, the only defense. The kingside pawns remain intact, but black has been compelled to place his pieces where white wants them. Under such circumstances the chances of black putting up a good light are not too bright. White must avoid black's error of castling as a matter of routine development. Such a quiet course would give black time to play 13 black d6 or 13 black h6, beating the knight back. White must not give his opponent a moment to catch his breath. He must attack, attack, attack. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn moves to h4 threatening to move on to h5, dislodging the knight, and then mate with the queen. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, pawn moves to h6, this was a blunder. A better move would have been queen moves to e7, what else is there? Black tries to drive off the menacing knight. He cannot do this by 13 black f6 as 14.d6 plus king moves to h8 15. Knight moves to f7 wins the exchange. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn moves to d6, a powerful stroke. Black's bishop is cut off from the defense, while a line is opened for white's bishop. White now threatens 15. Queen takes at g6, as the pinned f-pawn could not capture the queen. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, pawn from file h takes at g5, this was an inaccuracy. A better move would have been king moves to h8, black might as well take whatever material he can. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, pawn from file h takes at g5, the knight will not run away, the penalty being 16. Queen moves to h7, checkmate. Meanwhile, the rook has a lovely open file, and the queen still threatens to capture the knight. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, rook moves to e8, the king needs more room. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, queen takes at g6, regaining the piece without relaxing the pressure. White threatens one mate in 1, and 2 mates in 2. What do you think it was the next move of the black player? Black, rook takes at e5 check, black consoles himself by equalizing the material and gives one despairing check before he yields. What do you think it was the next move of the white player? White, king moves to f1 simplest, as the mate threats are still on tap. There was little chance that white would blunder by 17. King moves to d2, queen takes at g5, check. 18, queen takes at g5, rook takes at g5, when all the good work has gone for naught. Black can avoid mate on the move by 17. Black queen moves to e8, incidentally threatening mate himself, only to fall into 18. Queen moves to h7, check. King moves to f8, 19. Queen moves to h8, checkmate.